First of all, I think if you're a professional athlete, if it costs a normal person to have a rehabilitation, it costs them $10,000. An athlete, they're going to charge $90,000. I already know how the medical field works. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football, back at it again. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You'll not be disappointed. Also the like button too. And if you're on Twitter, hit follow me up. Okay. Twitter's doing well. Okay. Twitter and Facebook, or Twitter and YouTube videos are pretty similar right now. I do know that the monetization is better on the YouTube side. But anyways, do all that. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys. I made a video recently that basically said it's only a matter of time until college football players are considered employees, and we are seeing it move in that direction at this point. I want to break up an article here from ESPN.com because it basically says that as these players get more and more money, the ability to provide, or I shouldn't say the ability, but the risk to provide care to them goes up and up from there, because now all of a sudden the damages that you're doing are much more real in terms of salaries and this and that. I go to this article really quickly from ESPN.com because it says a lot of these providers don't really want to do that. So from Stefania Bell here yesterday at about 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have medical groups. Liability may limit care for top athletes. And again, make sure we're clear about something here. We're talking about top athletes. And as you know, in NIL, and name, image, and likeness, all that kind of stuff, the average player doesn't, get very much money. They might get $5K here. They might get 10, maybe 20, maybe 30. The top guys can get like $4 million, $5 million, $6 million. That's higher than some players in the NFL. So we're talking about that as we get to that point. The risk or the potential future damage you can do just goes up, up, and up from there. A group of prominent medical organizations say it's growing concern about what they consider to be a threat to medical care for top-level athletes, increasing liability risks for doctors as salaries for those athletes rise. The American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine, AOSSM, everybody loves their acronyms out there, along with 27 co-signers, distributed an open letter recently saying that, and I quote, recent and ongoing litigation may have an enormous negative impact on the medical care of competitive and elite athletes. And the short and long of it is they're worried about, the care is going to suffer. What they're really worried about is we're going to get sued and lose millions and millions of dollars. I don't fault them for that, but that's kind of reading through the line there. Bless their hearts. We're just so worried about them. No, what you're worried about is screwing up a top flight player, him getting $5 million a year. You get sued for it. Let's just say you cost him 6 years of his career, $5 million. You get sued for $30 million, as opposed to a normal college football player. You get sued, we'll reimburse your scholarship or something like that. As the salaries go up, the liabilities do too. The letter comes on the heels of several significant legal cases, including one where former NFL player Chris Maragos was awarded $43.5 million by a Philadelphia jury after accusing his surgeon and the group that oversaw his rehabilitation of malpractice for their decisions related to a meniscal tear. He contended in court that the case cost him $8.7 million in future NFL earnings, but was awarded 5 times that in damages. You could only imagine if this happened with, Drake May or with Caleb Williams or something like that. It cost them $15 million. They award them 5 times. 5 times 15 is 50. Was it 25? $75 million. Look at that quick math. Continuing on. Dr. Mark Miller, the AOSSM president, told ESPN the reason and timing for this statement is simple. He says, if not now, when? We want to raise public awareness that this issue affects the care for all the people we take care of. Our ability to serve all our patients from the playground to the professional level is at risk. And again, the professional level kind of has a lot of that built in. There's liability cases there. Again, the Eagles more than likely lost $43 million from their mistakes out there. So you can imagine that situation where you've got 85 scholarship players, you've got 130 FBS teams, you've got, again, most of the top flight guys. They mentioned top flight players there. The mid-level guys, you screw something up for them, reimburse them for a scholarship, it's not a big deal. You mess up Drake May's surgery, man, it's going to be huge for them. As salaries have risen for professional athletes and as college and even some high school athletes have secured big money name, image, likeness deals, the liability for future earnings has increased significantly, the group wrote. That could keep some of the nation's top doctors and surgeons away from treating high-level athletes of all ages. So if you imagine the situation here, they mentioned Dr. Scott Rodeo, the head team physician for the New York Giants, told ESPN potential liability concerns may impact the availability of qualified sports medicine experts for athletes. He says recent cases may be the tip of the iceberg, and some physicians may decide the visibility associated with caring for those athletes may not be worth the liability risk anymore. So what he's basically saying here is as the money gets more and more going up, there's more and more chances for possibilities of mistakes for this to happen with talking between NIL players or players in college and then the specialists that they see. So with that, before it was like, listen, if we screw up Drake May and he doesn't have NIL, it's going to cost us a couple million, maybe a couple $1 million. Now it could cost you $100 million. You know, again, if he gets awarded 5 times, that's a fringe case there in Philadelphia. But you see the fact that what if he gets the estimated damages are $25 million and he gets 5 times that? He gets $125 million. All of a sudden, the liability and the risk of being associated with taking care of those top flight players in college, the more money goes up, the more potential you can screw up from there. So it's almost like, do you want to touch this person from a radioactive perspective there? Because if you get this wrong, all of a sudden the liability is not that much. It's not low anymore like most colleges were, or college athletes were back in the 2010s and 2020s and things like that. It's going to go up from there because they're getting much more money these days. So again, they stated as they're kind of talking at 2 points of their mouth where they're saying, oh, well, we are really worried that these top flight level institutions and these medical providers aren't going to want to provide care for these players because they just don't want to, they're worried about the risk. They're saying, oh, well, we're worried about their health overall. No, you're not worried about you are worried about their health, but you're more worried about your pocketbook in case you get something wrong. It used to be a lot easier to do this. Now it's getting harder. Remember, guys, this is turning into NFL light. It is what it is. This is where we are. It says right here that Dr. Robin West, the lead team physician for the Washington Nationals, said she was concerned that younger doctors considering specialization in sports medicine may be deterred by the elevated risk of treating high-priced athletes. It may lead to young physicians opting to choose a different path entirely because of the liability and the risks in sports medicine aren't worth it. So for those of you who don't know, in the medical field, and again, I'm speaking like third, fourth, fifth hand in this situation here. I know plenty of family members and this and that are in the medical field. And the levels of insurance that you have to have depends on what you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing anesthesia, that insurance has to be real high because what happens if they don't wake up? Something to that effect. If now we're going to start to see potentially high-profile sports medicine, is going to be missing out on these great doctors because the liability is so high. There's got to be some solution out of it. But again, that's why this group is bringing this up now. This is a conversation they need to have because what happens when, Drake May or the equivalent of Drake May or Caleb Williams in 5, 10, 15 years is getting $15 million a year in college? That's something we really have to address right now because we're not there now, but we could be there eventually. The article continues here. It says, and it may not only be physicians deciding to step away from caring for elite athletes that potentially shrinks the provider pool. As risk rises, obtaining malpractice coverage through insurance companies is also more difficult. Like I said, a prominent orthopedic surgeon who takes care of professional athletes has already indicated that his insurance will no longer allow him to take care of this population because of this very issue. Subspecialists must work together to fight this unnecessary high legal risk of practicing more sports medicine and the damage it will do to the profession and the medical care of the athletes, the AOSSM wrote in its statement. The group is also calling for a higher standard for expert testimony in malpractice legal cases involving injured athletes. It's a high level of expertise that requires additional training, additional skills, and it takes tremendous commitment. In cases that do go to trial, there should be expert testimony that's on an equal level. That didn't happen in some of these cases. A concerted effort is needed to preserve the future of sports medicine field, the organization wrote, and says, and in cases where expert testimony is required, this testimony should come from a qualified medical physician expert. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Here is where we are at. So, and again, this is I see where they're coming from. Okay, you see where they're coming from, where they're like, listen, the more and more the risk of making a mistake goes up, the more and more I have to compensate. So again, more than likely, what I think is going to happen here is everybody's going to kind of go up from there. First of all, I think if you're a professional athlete, if it costs a normal person to have a rehabilitation, it costs them $10,000. An athlete, they're going to charge $90,000. I already know how the medical field works. They're just going to jack the price up just to make sure they can do this sort of service out there because the risks are getting higher and higher, and it looks like a lot of those connecting situations, insurance, we're talking about risk, we're talking about supply of candidates, it's all kind of coming, there's a little bit of a battle there. That is the invisible hand of the market for capitalism. I know some people might not like that. I don't really care. But it is true that right now, it looks like what is lagging in this situation is a lot of these medical providers and the insurance companies are like, this is kind of a raw deal for us. Remember here, that very next article on ESPN highlighted this. Michigan's Donovan Edwards played most of last season injured. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, and this came out this last, a couple days ago on the 10th. So when you think about this situation, he played most of last season injured. If he's able to prove, Coach Harbaugh was doing this for me, or, he said, yeah, you should be covered, you should do this, you should do that, and I did all that stuff, and it actually turned out to be the wrong decision for me to do that, I'm going to sue the school, I'm going to sue the physician, I'm going to sue the medical provider, I'm going to sue all of them. This is a situation that is going to be super, super common. Somebody who's, how do I want to say this? A perturbed individual on a team who sacrifices their body for the team, goes out there and does it, and doesn't get compensated for what they lost because of the sacrifices they made for the team or because of wrong information that they got. Remember here, this happens all the time. They're going to hit the head on this so many times. You will be absolutely shocked how many times this will come up more often and will be an issue more often. Remember here, we're talking about 85 scholarship athletes for 133 teams. I think it's 133 teams. So we're talking 11,000 players. Now the NFL, 32 times, and I think it was a 53-man roster. So almost 5 times as many, I think more than 5 times as many players. So whatever the issues are with the NFL, we have 5 times bigger a pool to work from. Now, to be fair, I think that the NFL has a more solid, and longer running union that the college has right now. I also think that for the majority of this is only going to affect the top level players who are getting the compensation that's going to potentially scare off some top level medical providers out there. So you see that situation there. The medical companies and medical providers are getting to this point where they're like, listen, taking care of a high-profile athlete, if we get something wrong, we are going to get sued out the butt. It is going to hurt us really, really bad. So they're basically saying, we have to charge more for insurance. We have to charge more for services. The risk might not be there. We're worried about their health, but in actuality, they're worried about doing something wrong and getting sued for it because of how much NIL money these players are going to be getting. Man, college athletes they're not potentially going to be employees. They basically already are, and it's getting more and more closer to that point. I think the market will take care of this whole situation, but I'm telling you, man, it's going to happen. College athletes are going to be employees sooner than you think. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you think about this whole situation? First of all, it's shocking that they tried to phrase it that way. Oh, we're worried about them not getting the best care they can have. No, you're worried about screwing up and getting sued out the butt. That's a fair thing to be worried about, but make sure you frame it properly here. But anyways, get in the comments right now. Let me know what you guys think. Also, follow me on Twitter, okay? Twitter's doing its thing. Anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you guys later. I am out.